What are the kinds of questions you ask about the world, right? What is it that you want to learn, right? It's not, so I think that there's a dimension. By the way, many students that perform spectacularly in their first 2 years of their PhD then fail because they cannot go from being very good at answering somebody else's question to ask their own. So I think that the more AI is good at answering questions, the higher the price of being good at asking questions. In some sense, we are the ones asking the questions. And that's the better the AI tools will be, the more value will be to the skill of asking questions.
How do you kind of get those skills going in students? I would love to know what are the right questions to ask. How do I do that? If a student after 2 years is not able to do that in the third year, how do you make it as a normal program, linear program?
So, let me tell you, we want to revolutionize everything, but even we have not been able to overcome the apprenticeship model, even in our PhD programs. Okay, we put them for 2 years in school. These days, a PhD in economics lasts 6 years. So 2 years in school, and the other 4 years, it's in an apprenticeship program where we don't know how to teach the stuff we do. The only thing you can pick it up by seeing other people doing, by trying to do it yourself. So it's an apprenticeship model. And I would even criticize my own profession, saying, even when we teach economics, we teach, say, models, and we teach how these models can answer what-if questions, right? But when you go to the world, nobody tells you what the model is. So you have to figure out, there's this, I don't know, the shoe hurts, etc., but I don't know what the model is. I don't know what the data is. I don't know what the problem is. I have to figure it out from scratch. It's that process from, finding problems in the world to figuring out how to structure your mind around them, how to find pathways to theories of change of what it is that you're going to do to figure things out. And I think that is what's going to be at a premium, and that's what we should focus our teaching on.
Okay, now I'm going to come to regulation and threats as well, but since we spoke about industry, and Professor Lee spoke about industry, right, and what does a nation have to do to make it economically viable as well, Shilpa, I'd like to come to you. I mean, to your mind, what are the critical elements, because you do this for a living per se, right? What are the critical elements that a state like Andhra Pradesh, for example, has to do in order to create a thriving AI ecosystem, which is, one, fundamentally sound, having the adequate skill sets for people, at the same time, economically viable as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, and as Minister Lokesh ji mentioned, the most essential thing is around outcomes. What outcomes is the nation trying to solve? So that is at the highest level. But what enables that, the ingredients that enable those outcomes, what make the nation an AI nation is, having a skilled workforce, having that ecosystem of entrepreneurs, of VCs, of researchers who can basically, create AI. Eventually, it is also about the access to compute. So to enable those data factories, those AI factories, which is essentially around the production of AI, it is important to think about it that you need the business ecosystems, the data, the infrastructure, the skill set in the workforce that can enable that factory, that can enable that production. I truly believe, like India, with its large talent pool and growing tech sector, can indeed play a very pivotal role, not only for itself, but for the global AI landscape there. And harnessing, so basically the availability of data, and then of course processing that data, managing that data, and then harnessing insights from that is what we call that tokens or intelligence. So in a factory, in this AI factory, raw material is data, output is tokens or intelligence. And this intelligence can then, for the industry, be used for various sectors, right? Agriculture, healthcare, education were mentioned earlier. Yeah, I think this is basically the key ingredients: business ecosystems, data, infrastructure, skill sets.
Okay. Well, a couple of other key elements for this would be cybersecurity. And Mr. Lokesh, please feel free to come in whenever, but one of the two things is cybersecurity and the regulation that should be put in place. So, Professor Suskin, the question that I've noted down for you, and I'd like to ask you, is that what's the AI regulation that should be firmly in place for any ecosystem to ensure its ethical use and a fit and proper use? I mean, if you broadly understand what I'm trying to ask, I mean, what are the regulations that should be put in place?
Or should regulations even be, is it too early?
Is it too early?
Putting the cart ahead of the horse?
Yeah, I mean, I think very broad, there is a lot of discussion today about the sort of technical limits to AI, what can and cannot be automated. But I think, and you know, every day we're told stories of new tasks and activities that these systems can take on, making medical diagnoses, composing jokes, writing legal arguments, designing buildings. You know, it's a sort of bafflingly impressive list. But I think we spend not enough time focusing on not the technical limits, but the moral limits, not what these technologies can and cannot do, but what they should and should not do. And we already, face these questions today. There are systems in the US that are used to